It's an off day for the Mariners, so we're going to spend today's episode answering some of your questions. This is the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It is Thursday, August 4th, 2022, and thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms with new episodes dropping every single Monday through Friday. I am your host, Tidy Gonzalez, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patnode. We cover the Mariners over at InsideTheMariners.com for Fan Nation over on the Sports Illustrated Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. Follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, SDANE. GNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/Control the Zone. We post 2 additional podcasts on there every single week. Again, that is patreon.com/Control the Zone. And if this is your first time joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. So we reached out to you on Twitter for your questions. We're going to be doing a little bit of a mailbag today, all day over the next 25 minutes or so. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to answer everyone's questions because you guys submitted a lot. So we've condensed it down to I think 11 or so questions, and we'll try to get through all of those. If we run out of time, apologies. We might be able to do another episode a little later down the line and maybe answer some of the remaining questions or do another mailbag. This is probably something that we're going to be doing more often in general here now that the deadline has passed. There's no more trade talk. We're just kind of in the dog days of summer now, and we're just going day by day. Games happen, we'll talk about the games, and that's about it, really, and anything else that's going on with the team. So so we might designate some episodes to do some more mailbags and stuff, and we might do some that are Twitter exclusive, we might do some that are exclusive to our YouTube comments, we might do some that are email exclusive. We'll let you know. So let's get into the first question, which comes from Elijah at the Prophet Eli _ on Twitter. How would you explain the Mariners as a whole to someone who is just back into baseball since 2008? Asking for a friend. Colby, how do you explain this Mariners team?
First of all, that's a bold Twitter handle. Second of all, I guess you could tell your friend that they're unexplainable. I think the one word you use here is chaos. The Seattle Mariners for the last year and change have basically been, Murphy's Law. Everything that could go wrong will go wrong, and then somehow they win anyways. Like it's pretty crazy. It's hard to explain because we don't have a point of reference. Like, Eli, are you a football fan? Like, I know some people get very upset about the whole, you can't compare them to a football team thing. And it's like, well, you can if you're trying to help somebody out. So it's a little tough to explain, but I would say, first of all, Eli, welcome to the Mariners fandom, or welcome your friend to the Mariners fandom. You don't have to worry about us here. We're not going to judge you for not paying attention for the last 15 years because understandable. Like we're not going to, talk about how we're better than you because we've been fans for so much longer. I don't care. Welcome aboard. Just enjoy the ride. It's chaos. It's times where your heart's in your throat as you nervously wait for a pitch. It's, getting blown out 7-0 in the third inning and knowing it's over. And even sometimes being down 1-0 in the fourth and being like, well, they probably lost this game. So it's a little bit of everything. You'll get your full range of emotions watching this team. I guess I would just sum it up by saying it's chaos, and I mean, we could either do chaos as a ladder or it's chaos be kind, whichever one you want to claim. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of there are a lot of emotions that you go through in a season. And it's a pretty cool community to be a part of when everybody rallies around a player or a team like they kind of are right now.
If you like jokes, if you like memes, the Mariners Twitter community is a great place to be, for the most part. For the most part, that is. But this Mariners team, they're kind of the other guys, right? I mean, you look at the players that they have, even their best players, even guys like Ty France. Like, not a lot of people know who Ty France is. Not a lot of people know. Looking at the national landscape right now, like, not a lot of people know what the Mariners are compiled of, really. And I kind of like that, though. I like that they're kind of these underdogs, these guys that not a lot of people know of, that are just gonna they're gonna come to a stadium near you and kick your team's butt, basically. And that's that's what it is. And I like that. But this team, they're Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. And the Astros and the Yankees, they're Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Samuel L. Jackson.
which I guess makes Scott Service the captain who won't stop quoting TLC, which honestly fits.
Creep. Don't go chasing waterfalls, guys. So I actually want to address a common question / complaint we always get on the channel, particularly in the comments, about how we refer to starting pitchers as, number ones, number twos, number threes. Yes. There's a lot of folks upset with us, or particularly you, Colby, for calling Luis Castillo a number 2 and number 3. But this is how you and I have always kind of talked about pitchers. And I've always, at least me personally, I don't know how you feel, but I've always looked at when we say that as kind of a tier list, right? And number ones, to me, are the unicorns, right? They're the Jacob deGroms, the Max Scherzers of the world. And I think, while we can, I think we can all acknowledge that while Luis Castillo is incredibly talented, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, he's not Jacob deGrom, he's not Sandy Alcantara, he's not Max Scherzer. So I more so put him in the, number 2 category. And there's always low end 2s, high end 2s, high end 3s, low end 3s. Like, they're the guys that are on the cusp, right? They're on the fringe there of being a number 1, right? If they're a high end 2, like, they can be a number 1, and usually their floor is like a number 3. And so, yeah, that's not to say that Luis Castillo is a number 3, like he's like a number 3 starter in a rotation, but that's kind of his floor. Right, and his ceiling is low end number 1, high end number 2. And so, but again, it's just this is just a tier list, right? It's not actually, what we think relative to the Mariners rotation. Of course, Luis Castillo is the ace of the Mariners rotation. Before that, it was Robbie Ray, right? We're not denying that. We're not saying otherwise. It's just if this rotation also had Sandy Alcantara in it, or Jacob deGrom in it, or Max Scherzer in it, I'm not putting, Luis Castillo over those guys. It's just what it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people, they for example, I think the people who complain that I call Castillo a 3, they think Marco is a 3. And it's no. Marco may pitch in the 3rd slot. He is not a number 3. Marco is a number 5. And kind of the way to look at it is an ace is there's 5 of them, 6 of them. Yeah. And basically, to me, an ace is a guy who, when that guy's on the mound for your team, you win. You're going to win 99 times out of 100, right? And the one time you don't lose, the one time you don't win, it's Garrett Cole yesterday, where he just has a bad inning, right? And that happens to everybody. Then you kind of had the number 1s who are a little bit below an ace. There's probably only 5 or 6 of those guys, really. Walker Buehler is probably a 1, not quite an ace. Max Scherzer is an ace. That's the difference there. And then number 2 is again, it's just a little bit below that. Number 3, I think people think middle of the rotation, middle of the pack. No, number 3 pitchers are very good, and there's not, there's probably number 3s. There's probably, I don't know, 30 of them total. And some teams have 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And then the biggest meat of the bell curve is 4 and 5s, and most pitchers are 4 or 5s. Almost all of them are 4 or 5. So when I say a guy's a number 3, it still means he's a top 50 pitcher in all of baseball. So it's don't take that lightly. I mean, Luis Castillo could be and the difference between 20 and 50, not that big usually. So number 3 is basically like, hey, he's the top 20-ish arm in baseball. So yeah, I think the confusion there comes from people looking at Marco Gonzalez as a number 3, and that's not accurate.
Right. Yeah. Because Marco is a guy that's going to be mid 3 ERAs at best, but he's likely in that 4 to 4.5 range, and he's going. He gives up a ton of hard contact. He doesn't strike guys out. Like that's a number 4 at best, right? I think if we're being generous there, Marco on his best day is a number 4 pitcher for the most part, just in terms of like his stuff and just everything that he kind of brings to the table, and like how it's pretty much everything has to go perfectly with the way that he manages contact for him to have a good day on the bump. And he's going to have those days, but he's also going to have nights like the one that he had in New York on Monday. So so that's just, hopefully that kind of clears things up. And that kind of gives people maybe a little bit of a better understanding as to what we're saying when we talk about these things, and when we say like this guy's a number 2, this guy's a number 3. Again, that's not to say that he's a number 2 in the Mariners rotation. He's not he's a number 3 in the Mariners rotation. It's not saying that, and it's not even like besmirching these players as well, because like Colby said, even if you're a number 3, you're probably a top 50 pitcher in baseball, and that's really good. Luis Castillo is better than that to me. Like, I think he's top 15 right now. I mean, statistically, he's been top 10, top 12 this year. So I would say he's a number 2, because again, number 1s, they're the unicorns. They're the unicorns of starting pitching. They're not, like you said, there's maybe 5 or 6 of them, if that. So, what would be the most amazing bench the Mariners could field in the postseason if everything went perfectly for the Mariners the rest of the way, and everyone was healthy, and they had everyone at their disposal? We're going to be answering that in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as the person you love with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft their perfect engagement ring, and each ring will be a one-of-a-kind. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and going on now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Let's hop back into these questions. Next up is Cole at Cole W. McKittrick. If everyone were hypothetically to get healthy, who would you consider the ideal playoff bench players for the Mariners? Colby, I'll start with you.
Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna, and Mike Trout. Yeah. So let's see. Ideal bench players. Well, you got to have a catcher. So that would be Casale. You have to have, some speed would be nice late in games. So to me, that's Haggerty. He's just the fastest guy on the team. It's either him or Julio. I'm not sure who has the sprint speed lead right now, but it's one of those two. And obviously Julio's starting. So I think it starts with Casale and Haggerty. And then for me, I want a little bit of thump off the bench, somebody I can play matchup with. I think that's actually going to end up being Jake Lamb. We'll see if he can stick around long enough. And then you kind of want, for me at least, I'm not worried about backup shortstop or anything like that. So for me, I'm just kind of looking like am I carrying a platoon guy with me? And if I am, that's probably at this stage either Santana or Lewis, maybe.
Mhm.
But I think for me, I'm probably looking at Haggerty, Casale, Lamb, and probably Santana.
The other thing that we need to keep in mind here too is that if we're talking about just the wild card round, it's only 3 games at most. They're not going to need to carry all these pitchers.
Right. I don't know how they. I think you can carry. I think you still have to carry a minimum of 12 in the playoffs. I think that's kind of how they counteract it. But yeah, you should be able to carry an extra bench bat if you want it.
At ZipKidCW says or asks, does Ty want Sam Haggerty, or Dylan Moore for the last bench spot if/when everyone is healthy? Also, Colby should rant about Dylan Moore. Colby, rant about Dylan Moore on command right now.
Well, I'm not your trained monkey, Chris. So no, I just don't think he's very good. I don't think he can hit. And I think he is, at best, the 5th or 6th best option off your bench. So send him down to AAA, and maybe he learns how to hit, and maybe he is valuable. But until then, no. Like, the answer is obvious. Haggerty's a better base runner. He's a better hitter, and he is just as good of a defender. The only difference is that they seem to trust Dylan Moore at shortstop and not Haggerty, which, again, in a playoff series means absolutely nothing.
All right, so Chris said this is assuming the 4-man bench is made up of Kurt Casale. Obviously, Casale's in there. Jake Lamb, Kyle Lewis, and then blank. It's either Haggerty or Moore. I would pick Haggerty because he's hitting right now, and he's versatile defensively. I put him in at a few spots, especially in a pinch, and he just continues to hit no matter what day it is. Whenever he's in the lineup, it seems like he's always getting hit, except for that one night in Houston. We're not going to talk about that. I would put Taylor Tremella in over here, over Kyle Lewis right now. If this is, again, another circumstance where everyone is healthy, I'm putting Taylor Tremella over Kyle Lewis because, I mean, he actually gives me value on the base pass and defensively. And there's a non-zero chance that he's better offensively as well right now.
We'll see. I don't think Lewis is going anywhere. I think they should consider it, definitely. But I don't think he will. And then we'll see what they want to do because Trammell's working on his rehab assignment right now. Probably be down there for another week or so before they make a decision. He played right field last night. We're expecting Haniger to be back tomorrow. But, maybe they be a little more cautious than that. But we'll see. They'll have to make a decision on Trammell pretty soon, and they could just option him back down to AAA if they really want to give Lewis the at-bats. But I think they should consider sending Lewis down and bringing Trammell up. But we'll see what they do.
All right, Christian Ryle at C_Ryle34. What is the plan for Marco and Flexen for 2023 given the current rotation setup? I wouldn't bank on either one of those guys being in the rotation for the Mariners next year. I honestly think at this point, despite how beloved Marco is in the clubhouse, that he might not even be here exiting the winter. I would say that Flexen might have a better shot of being on the roster than Flexen does. But that also could be Flexen as a reliever, as a long guy out of the bullpen, which I actually like that for him. I like that role for him. Marco, I think, is going to have some sort of value. He's not going to have immense value by any means. Don't get me wrong here, but I think there is going to be some value for Marco on the trade market in the winter. And there was a report that the Phillies were scouting him during his last start at Yankee Stadium. Obviously, that didn't go very well, and the Phillies, of course, did not trade for Marco. But it seems like maybe the Mariners are open to the idea of trading Marco at this point. And honestly, I'd be a little bit surprised if Marco was still a Seattle Mariner by the time spring training rolls around.
Yeah, this is one of the beauties of the Castillo trade, is that you can go into the winter, assuming everybody gets through this season healthy, which, hopefully. But you can kind of go into the winter and be like, okay, we don't need to go out and sign Joe Musgrove. I know he just signed an extension, but you know what I mean? You don't need to go out and get the top of the market guy. You don't have to spend money on that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't. Doesn't mean you shouldn't, but you don't have to. Whereas if you didn't get Castillo, you kind of feel like we need that type of guy, so we have to go pay for it. You don't. So what you can do is you can kind of let the market come to you. And if somebody's like, say, Nathan Evaldi is sitting there in January and, he can be had for 2 years, $35 million when he was asking for 4 and 80, then maybe you jump on that and you take advantage of that. And then that's when you decide to move on from Marco or Flexen. But the beauty of starting pitching is that you're always going to be able to trade it. So you can just keep them all winter if you want and see what happens in spring training. But that is one of the hidden benefits of the Castillo trade is that your 1 through 4 is pretty much locked in. And if Marco is your 5 or Flexen is your 5, fine. Like that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. But if the opportunity comes to kind of build this super rotation, which it won't be, but like if you can remove a number 5 and add a number 3 back into this thing in free agency or via trade, then you can just flip Marco whenever. And like I said, it doesn't have to be this winter. It can be at spring training. Pitchers are always going to have value, particularly starting pitchers who are healthy. So they don't have to do anything in their rotation this winter. I suspect they still might. I think they might try to add something, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Flexen and Marco are both gone or either of them are gone. But I think it just allows Seattle to have that flexibility that if they go out and they can get a Jamison Tyone or whatever, right, then like, okay, well, we'll say goodbye to Marco and we'll trade him and we'll probably get a nice bullpen piece or maybe a backup catcher or something of value that can help us elsewhere. So the Mariners rotation is in a good spot, assuming they get through the rest of the season healthy.
All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit about how the roster is going to shape up once guys start trickling in here during the next segment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There is a new flavor. You ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it, plus it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, that is LOCKD15 for 15% off your order at built.com. So we have 3 questions to go here. Let's now answer Hunter's question. At Hunter Porton asks, how does the roster look next week in your eyes? Presumably the 3 guys coming back from injury, plus the 2 new position players we just acquired. Interested to hear your guys' thoughts. So Julio is expected back after his 10-day IL stint. Doesn't seem like there's going to be any extra days away for Julio. I would assume that means that either Abraham Toro or Jared Kelenic is going down. We also expect that Mitch Haniger is coming back either on Friday or sometime this weekend. So that would also mean either Kelenic or Toro is going down. There's also Travis Jankowski, of course. So that's also a likely option there, though I think until Julio gets back, Jankowski stays because of the center field defense, at the very least. So I think it would be Toro or Kelenic on that front, probably Kelenic, if I had to guess.
How much do you want to play Jankowski in center field?
It's true.
So I think Toro gets sent down for Haniger.
Yeah, and also they're going to be adding Jake Lamb to the roster tomorrow. I would assume that's going to happen. So that's where it gets a little difficult there. If you want to keep Kelenic in center field. So
I think I'm DFAing Jankowski at that point.
Okay.
I'll live with Kelenic in center field for a while, and then in a week or two when Trammell is healthy, I'll have my center field emergency guy at least stashed in AAA. So I think for me, the 2 guys they're definitely going to add tomorrow well, assuming they add Haniger tomorrow, Lamb and Haniger, to me, those guys replace Toro, who gets sent to AAA, and Jankowski, who gets DFA'd. That's my guess.
Yeah.
On those
And
two.
so, Casale, we got to see how long his rehab assignment is going to last before we assume that he is going to be back with the team next week. So that's possible. That's certainly a possibility here. It's not a guarantee yet, though, as far as I'm aware. But that one's very simple. That one is just Luis Torrens gets DFA'd, and that's it. And I know that Chris had a question about, at Zip Kid CW about if they would keep Torrens and keep 3 catchers over maybe sending down Kyle Lewis. I don't think that would happen. I don't think that would happen whatsoever. Lewis is he's more valuable to you than Luis Torrens is right now. Even with Torrens being able to catch, and even with Lewis's knee issues and everything, and how limited his value is right now, as he continues to work his way back from his knee thing. So, yeah, I don't think there's any real possibility here of Lewis getting sent down because, of course, Taylor Trammell has started a rehab assignment as well. He's been doing that for the last few days. It's possible he might get activated at some point here in the coming week or so. So maybe that at that point they think about maybe swapping Trammell for Lewis, or they might just wait and let Trammell kind of work through some things down in Tacoma and then add him when rosters expand to 28 next month. So we'll see. All right, so we got a question now from, and I asked him how he pronounces his name because I was a little confused. I was hoping to get a pronunciation guide here so I could get it right on the show. So I'm sorry if I butcher your name here. I believe it's either Teague or it's Tage, like beige, because it's Teige. Again, I'm sorry for butchering your name if I did. He says, "What's up, guys? I'm a huge fan of Locked On Mariners. Absolutely loving the content. Thank you so much. I'm an inspiring sports journalist slash broadcaster, and I was thinking of starting a podcast with one of my buddies in my sports journalism class. My question is, how you guys prep for a 30-minute plus discussion? How you guys go over pre-recording and all that? Again, big fan of y'all. I'm always waiting for your videos to come out after games and love your guys' opinions." Very nice of you. I appreciate that. So how do we prep for a 30-minute plus show, Colby?
Boy, it takes a long time. Short answer is we don't. No. So
I mean, there's a little bit of truth to that. Some days, look, we got other stuff going on. This isn't our main source of income. We'll be upfront about that. This is a passion thing, And so sometimes we only have 5 minutes to figure out what we're going to talk about. And that just is what it is. Other times, though, we'll kind of talk throughout the week about stuff that we want to talk about, stuff that we want to do, maybe some fun stuff like the mailbag today. Colby brought that up a couple days ago after we recorded one of our shows. Sometimes we try to blend topics into our Patreon show as well, patreon.com/control-the-zone. And stuff that we can maybe introduce on here and then flesh out on CTZ.
yeah.
But yeah,
I think first and foremost here, if you're trying to start a podcast with your buddy, that's great. My recommendation would be do it, and just don't expect anybody to listen right away. You know what I mean? You can't start a podcast with the expectation that you're going to be instantly successful. Maybe you will be, and that'd be great. Maybe you won't, and there'll be times where you literally feel like you're just recording for yourself, right? And that's one of those things. But it does have value because there is some therapeutic, nature to just talking sports with Ty. I mean, I'm one of Ty's best friends, and he's one of my closest acquaintances, and so we talk sports pretty much every day now, and that's awesome. So that is one of the bonuses. So I think when you're talking about prep for a 30-minute show, honestly, it's not that hard. It's a little different for Ty and I because we have to do 8 shows a week. So So yeah, there are going to be some days where we're like, oh.
And Colby and I are we're generally on the same page about how we feel on things. Not necessarily that we agree with one another's opinions, but we kind of already understand what one another's stance is on certain topics, because we're always like we're chatting in DMs on Twitter and stuff during games and everything. And so we usually kind of develop what we want to talk about through that as well, because like Colby will hop in here before we're about to record and I'll just be like, hey, like let's talk about this thing that we were talking about last night, and let's just kind of flesh that out, especially like with trade talk. We were always kind of like, all right, let's talk about this guy and how you would be able to get this guy, or what have you. So I would say to you though, just record. That's it. Just record, just do it for the love of it. I mean, we're still doing it for the love of it. We've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now together. And we, obviously not just on Locked On Mariners, but, by the way, our 1-year anniversary at Locked On is coming up next week.
Next week, the 9th.
So
I noticed
that's
that.
cool. That's cool.
I was just going to say, like what Ty was saying, hit record, just talk about what you want to talk about and let kind of the conversation flow naturally. I think Ty and I typically have a pretty conversational style to broadcasting. To our recordings, it's pretty conversational. Don't be afraid to cut each other off. Don't be afraid to. There's a little more structure on Locked On than what we do at like CTZ, for example.
Yeah.
Just because we have different responsibilities here at Locked On. But I think one of the worst things you can do is try to be like, oh, I'm going to be like, Mike Salk or Colin Cowherd, and I'm going to have like these very defined talking points. And it's like, that can work sometimes, but for the most part, you just got to let it flow, and you kind of got to find your own style. Maybe you do work better in the structure, or maybe you're more of a conversationalist. It can work, but you have to kind of be true to yourself and your buddy. And I would recommend you just hit record and just start talking, and things kind of take care of themselves. You kind of get a sense of the flow and like when we need to take a break and when we need to stop and when you need to let your partner speak. And like, there's like this flow that kind of gets built, and it starts with just hitting record. So as lazy as it sounds, like for you, if you're planning on starting your own podcast, which is great. I mean, I'm sure Ty and I would come on it. I think honestly, hit record and just start talking about sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you fill 30 minutes like it's nothing. And you'll look up and you'll be like, oh man, we're at 35 minutes. We just started 10 minutes ago. We got to stop talking soon.
There's a lot of shows that we do that ends up like that. This being one of them.
If you have any other questions, man, reach out to us. But again, I think the best advice I could give is just hit record and put it out there, man. And don't be afraid. Put it out on YouTube. Put it out on Spotify. Those things are free. Don't be afraid to look down and see you have one view. Keep grinding at it. Keep doing it. Keep putting it out there. Be active on social media. And it's just like anything else, man. You grind, you find your style, and you get better at it as you go, and go for the best.
All right, so last question, and we'll make this quick. This is from Frederick at Don't Call Me Fred on Twitter. Love that name. This one was just DM'd to me privately, but I liked it, and I figured we could answer it pretty quickly. So what do you think we're getting in Felnin Celestine? I know you said he's probably going to be our number one prospect. Player comps, development track. So I don't have a ton of information on Felnin Celestine. I only have a couple of people that I talk to that are kind of in the know when it comes to prospects, particularly prospects that are coming out of the international circuit. And of course, Felnin Celestine still hasn't signed with Mariners officially, but he is going to in January. There's nothing that's expected to get in the way of that. So he will officially join the Mariners organization in 2023, in January of 2023. So, of course, this is one of the most highly touted shortstop prospects to come out of the international pool in quite some time. We're talking like he has buzz that guys like Wander Franco had coming out. He's a legitimate prospect. He's a guy that's, if he hits his ceiling before he graduates, he's going to be one of the top prospects in baseball. Celestine is a switch hitter. He's grown quite a bit over the last year and a half. He's now 6'2", last time that I heard, about $180. and he's going to stick it short. There's no question about that. It's kind of the Edwin Arroyo thing, really. He's going to stick it short, but now what? Is he actually going to be able to hit? And there's a lot of folks that think like he's going to hit, but he might not hit a ton. And so that's what's led to some player comps like Didi Gregorius, which I know scares some people considering the fact that Didi was literally just released today by the Phillies. And that's not, he's a good player, but not, that's nothing that you're going to get really, really excited about here. But what you might get excited about is that there are some comps that say that if he hits his ceiling, he's Francisco Lindor. Mm-hmm. The power, the hit tool, all of that is Francisco Lindor, plus the defense at shortstop. There is a possibility here that Ferdinand Celestine could be a Francisco Lindor type. In fact, there are a lot of scouts that actually think that's almost a given. There aren't many sure things, especially, there aren't many sure things with prospects in general, but especially with the international market, there's hardly ever a sure thing. There's hardly ever a guy where scouts will say he is definitively going to be a big leaguer and going to be a star at that. Mm-hmm. Ferdinand Celestine is one of the exceptions. He's one of those guys that I've actually heard from, well, not from scouts myself, but from someone that has heard from scouts that say he's the real deal. All right, well, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for submitting your questions and for tuning in to us today. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every single day. We greatly appreciate your support. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.